Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Natural Fails channel. I am your host, Fails, and today we are going to be looking at some more Remaster 2E content. Today, I decided let's go ahead and look over some of the changes that happened to the Ancestries and also look at the Ancestries that have been made into core Ancestries, which is all going to be very fun. Before we really get into diving into these changes, I want to shout out the Reddit user Akili Pedro, who is the one who was so kind as to really go into these two books from the original rule book and the player core and compare the two and see what has changed. Honestly, this video couldn't have been done without them. Shout out to them and their continued work for the Pathfinder 2nd Edition community. Thank you. Now I'll go ahead summarize your hard work so people don't need to look at it if they don't want to. So first, let's go ahead and look at what was changed for the Dwarf. So Dwarf has a handful of changes. The first notable change that is here is that Terran has been updated to Petrin, and I don't know how to pronounce this. Sakharoth has been added. I don't know how to pronounce that. But it is what it is. Sakharoth. So you've got a new language that's been added. So the first big change that I notice here is a change to the Death Warden Dwarf. Basically, all that's been changed here is that instead of saying necromancy, it now gives you that effect with anything with the void trait or that was created by an undead creature. That is basically just because arcane schools are gone as how they function in 5th edition. The next one is the Rock Dwarf, which all it really does is add on reposition. Just adds reposition to the athletic skills that you are now don't need to worry about as much. Or at least you get that +2 too. You still need to worry about it, but rambling aside. With that, it looks like we have to move on to the feats here. Dwarven lore has now been given additional lore general feat for dwarf lore. So that just means it gets the skill increase. I really like this because taking any kind of like dwarven lore or elven lore, I'm going to assume that this is going to be the same going for all of them. You just get those skill increases for free. Before, you would have to actually spend your normal increases to get your lore upgraded, which was a feel bad moment, right? You don't want to necessarily spend it. So I really like this. You get free increases for your dwarf lore. All right, Dwarven Weapon Familiarity. The big change here is that you now get critical specialization effects. Very nice. I like it. Mountain Strategy. This is replacing the, I believe it was Vengeful Hatred, it looks like. So before you could only pick one of the listed monster types or enemy types, I suppose, to be effective against. But now you can just get all of them, it looks like. So that is very useful. You just get to do an extra +1 to damage. This is good, especially at level 1, and if you're going to be in a campaign fighting any of those creatures. Giant Goblin, Hargener, or Orc. I don't know how to say. I'm going to assume that's like the quote-unquote deep dwarfs. I think. I don't know. I have not fully adjusted to some of these name changes. We also see that Rock Runner has been slightly changed here. It now says you can ignore difficult terrain caused by stone and uneven ground made of stone and earth. Very good. And now you get to use your reaction skill to balance even on narrow surfaces and uneven ground, and you aren't off guard. Just all really cool stuff. So Stonemason's Eye, the biggest change I think I'm seeing here is that you now get trained in crafting, and if you were already trained in crafting, you get the specialty crafting skill for stonemasonry. That's really useful. Okay, so the next change happened in the Stonewalker. You can cast one with stone as a third rank spell. I think that's something that got name changed. I think it used to be meld into stone. It also references the Stone Mason's Eye feat. You get to check for things that usually require legendary proficiency, and once you have legendary proficiency, when the GM makes a secret check, you get to keep the Stone Mason's Eye's extra benefit, which is very cool. And we got a whole new ancestry feat, March the Myers. I don't think this had anything analogous, so you march through the earth and lead an ally along. You gain a burrow speed of 15 feet when you use this activity, if you don't have a higher one, and then you either stride twice or burrow twice. You can choose one willing ally adjacent to you at the start of your movement to move with you. The ally ends its movement one square behind you. So you basically you basically say, hey buddy, we're going underground, and you drag your friend along with you. I think this is hilarious. I really like this feat. Stone Gate, it now references the spell Magic Passage instead of Pass Wall. Stonewall, this is a new feat. It is a reaction, it's once per day. The trigger is an enemy or hazard effect hits you, or you fail a fortitude save against one. The strength of stone overcomes you so strongly that it replaces your stout body. You become petrified until the end of the current turn. You don't take any damage from the triggering effect or any other ill effects that couldn't affect stone. So you basically just turn into a stone statue and then don't take any damage. That is sort of awesome. That is a cool feat right there. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to Elf. So Elf has had some changes. It looks like instead of making it so you can try to sense in a cone, or making that cone larger, you can now your benefit now is that when you target an opponent that is concealed from you or hidden from you, reduce the DC of the flat check to 3 for a concealed target or a 9 for a hidden one. I really like this because that seek action, making that cone larger, I don't know, that you would forget. I would forget for sure. But I feel like lowering the DC for the flat check for concealment and hidden, that's just super useful. That's going to come up at least occasionally. So there'll definitely be a point where you're like, I'm really happy I took the Whisper Elf heritage as compared to before, where I don't think that would really ever come up. Okay, we go on and move to the Elf feats. The first big change I'm seeing here is Elven lore, again being buffed up. So you're just going to have that lore immediately increase at the proper levels. That's really sick. It looks like for Elven weapon familiarity, there's just now more weapons that you can become familiar with, which is really cool. And it also gives you the critical hit specialization. So that's really good. The next feat is Avenge Ally. Oh boy, this is a really fun change. So basically what used to be the case is Avenge Ally would only work if you were with like right next to your ally who was knocked out. Now it can be 30 feet away from an ally that has a dying condition, which is so much better. So basically, you don't need to be next to your ally. You can be 30 feet away and smack. So basically, as soon as they take down your stout fighter, or maybe even one of your weak little spellcasters, you can just immediately get basically 5th edition advantage and be living really good. The next big change I see here is that universal longevity has lost the requirement for expert longevity, and it looks like it is now just optional to have that feat. You no longer need it. So some minor changes, but I think Elf got some very nice changes here. Not a lot, but all stuff that helps out. All right, now we are moving to Gnome. I'm not seeing a lot of changes or really any changes to the heritages, so we're just going to immediately move on to the feats. So I see that the animal allocutionist, you gotta forgive my pronunciation here, has now been changed so that you can talk with any animal instead of only ones with the burrow speed. And it seems like this text was also added. In most cases, wild animals will give you time to make your case. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to make an impression on animals. So you just have an easier time to talk with animals, which is really nice. Fey Fellowship. Hmm. It looks like they got rid of a clause that used to be here, a special clause. I'm no longer seeing that. So now it just works on anything. You don't have to worry about that special condition. All right. And for Gnome Session, it looks like almost a completely different feat. I'll just read it out. You might have a flighty nature, but when a topic captures your attention, you can dive into it head first. You gain the additional lore feat and the assurance feat for the chosen lore. As gnome obsessions can come and go quickly, you can retrain gnome obsession to a different lore subcategory in 1 day of downtime. This is going to be really good if you're playing any kind of game that requires you to deal with like very specific concepts and that might change day to day, or even in just any campaign. Like one day you're like, okay, today we are going to be fighting dragons. Tomorrow, and you say, okay, I'm going to make dragons my new obsession, and I'm going to just dive right into being all about dragons. I really like this, and I also think it really plays into the gnome lore. Gnome weapon familiarity, same changes as the other ones. First World Adept has had a name change, so it has went from Fairy Fire to Revealing Light. Life Leap removed the Necromancy trait because Necromancy is not a thing anymore. Instinctive Obfuscation is now once per hour. Whew, that's very interesting. And it looks like it doesn't give you just mirror image anymore. Now it's just an illusionary double of you appears in your space for a brief moment. The triggering attacker must roll a DC 10 flat check. On a success, the target or the attacker targets you normally. If they fail, the attack targets the double and destroys it. This is really neat because it basically gives you this nice defensive option that you can use every hour. So I think this is going to be very nice if you want to play a very tricky or hard to hit gnome. And then Homeward Bound has just had all their spell names changed to be in line with the remaster. So let's go ahead and move on to Goblin. So first off, again, Goblin does not seem to have any heritage changes. Gnome lore has gotten the increase that the other ones have. Goblin weapon familiarity has gotten the critical hit specialization. All very nice. So Junk Tinkerer has gotten a little bit of a buff. Now your shoddy items don't give you a penalty. You can just make shoddy items and use them just as effectively as other things, essentially, which is very interesting. I really like this change. That it really leans into this goblin nature of just using trash to like get through life. I really like that change. It's very interesting. All right. Rough Rider seems to just have gotten an additional benefit to if you're riding wolves, it looks like. It now says if you gain a wolf as an animal companion, it gains the Mount Special ability. And if you gain an ability that grants you an animal companion with the Mount Special ability, you can choose a wolf. That's really cool. All right. Cling looks like they just clarified. The requirements now say your last action was a successful strike and you have your hand, a free hand. So you can't be dual wielding and cling on to someone. That makes sense to me. All right, and that means now we are moving on to Halfling. So Halfling, the heritages, we have had two changes. So Jinxed now just doesn't have the necromancy feat, and Wildwood now specifies you ignore any difficult terrain caused by plants and fungi. So now let's move on to the Halfling feats. It seems like Halfling lore and Halfling weapon familiarity have both had their specific, just the same changes all the other ones have had. So Folksy Pattern has had a clarification on how the DC is reduced. So it now says this DC is reduced by 5 if the listener is a halfling or has folksy patter, or by 10 if both apply. So, if someone has this, actually, this is very interesting because that means if you have like a human that took the ancestry and has a folksy patter, and they have folksy patter, you get to apply the DC 5 change. And I think that's very funny. Sure Feet now just says off guard. Titan Slinger has been clarified to say with a weapon of the sling group. Unfettered Halfling just added immobilization to the conditions. And I think it also removed the thing where if there was an automatic grab ability, they would need to make a roll, because that's just now how it works for everyone. Watchful Halfling got rid of the -2 circumstance penalty to the GM secret checks. That's nice. Really like that. And Unhampered Passage just changed the spell to match the new remaster spell. The same as always. Now we're going to move on to humans. It seems to me that humans did not get a lot of changes. The only thing I really notice is that incredible improvisation no longer requires clever improviser. So I guess that's a subtle buff if you don't want to take that. It's no longer a feat chain. Interesting. But this is fair, to be honest. I think humans were already a very strong ancestry, so really they didn't need any changes. They were pretty much on point as they were. All right, and now we get into some exciting things. So Leshy is now a core ancestry. This is so sick. So it looks like the Leshy heritages, some of them have been altered. So for the fruit Leshy, the necromancy, healing, and primal traits were removed from the healing fruit, and vitality was added. And it now says specifically in the text, this effect has the healing and vitality trait. For Lotus, they just removed some redundancy. It basically just removed this acrobatics check doesn't use an action. Didn't need to say that. Root heritage now adds a reposition to that list. So now you get a +2 circumstance bonus to your fortitude or reflex DCs against attempts to reposition, shove, or trip you. Basically, just going back in line with, hey, this is a new strength action that can happen to you. You don't need to worry about it. Moving on to the feats, Leshy Lore has, again, gotten all the buff that all the lore skills get. Seed Pod has had its range increase. It used to only be 10 feet, now it's 30 feet. And the Manipulate trait was removed. Anchoring Roots now just has an additional requirement. You are on a solid surface. And again, it adds reposition to the list of actions it gives a bonus for. Ritual Reversion basically just updates the spell naming to remastered, and it removes the transmutation trait. And Bark and Tindril basically just changed the spells again. So now they are up to date with remaster core names. All right, and now we are moving on to our last new heritage, the Orc. So let's go ahead and see what got changed for the good old Orc here. So the first one I'm seeing is the Grave Orc Heritage. It used to say negative damage, and now says void damage. And it also has changed a line of text to, you also gain a +1 circumstance bonus to saving throws against effects with the death or void trait. With the Orc feats, we have Orcalore and Orc Weapon Familiarity, all getting its special benefits. Okay, and oh wow, this is basically a completely new feat. Hold Mark now says, when you select this feat, choose one of the options from the below table. You are trained in the listed skill, gain a +1 status bonus to saves against spells from the listed tradition, and you gain a large brand or tattoo in the shape of the chosen emblem or a similar concept. So this is very, very cool. So basically just giving you a lot of stuff. So you have Burning Sun, which gives a bonus to Diplomacy and Arcane, Death's Head, Survival and Primal, Defiled Corpse, Religion and Divine, and Empty Hand, Intimidation, and Occult. This is really cool. I like the fact just giving them extra skills. Okay, and Ferocious Beast seems to have just sort of reworded some of the prerequisitions. So now you just need a pet or a bounded animal. So there you go. Pretty simple changes for the orc. Now we have some versatile heritages. So we see that the Changeling has now been made core, which is awesome. I love the Changeling. It's probably one of my favorite versatile heritages. So let's go ahead and see what got changed for the Changeling. Good joke. Calome seems to have just updated the hag. Now it's no longer a green hag, it's a sweet hag. And again, updating some of the terminology. Dream May has been changed from night hag to a cuckoo hag. What? That is a funny name. And the Slag May has been updated from an Anise hag to an Iron hag. Very cool. Changeling lore, again, all the Changeling lores have been changed, and hag magic has changed to follow the heritages. Just the hag name changes. It's bring it all in line. Again, I'm just more excited that Changeling is here and it is now core. Very sweet. Okay, so Nephilim. This is a weird one. So this almost looks like it is completely new. However, what it is that they've combined the Asimar and the Tiefling into a completely combined heritage. So you're going to see that a lot of the names have been changed just to sort of mix them together. That's sort of cool. So let's go ahead and try to parse what is completely different. I'm going to assume that a lot of these have been just combined. So we're going to have to see how this works. It looks like some of the wording has changed for Angelkin and Pitborn. So they have just updated words. So, for example, Celestial is now the Empyrean language, and they no longer call the Abyss. It is now called the Outer Rift for the Pitborn. Halo has been changed. It now is just a sustain action to suppress or reestablish the Halo. That's it. Just bringing it in line, making it not so confusing. Nephilim Eyes, I think, is just sort of the now combined version of Celestial or Fiendish Eyes. It's just Nephilim Eyes. They did the same thing. Nephilim Lore now gives trained proficiency in diplomacy or intimidation and religion. So you get to pick between whether having diplomacy or intimidation, and you always get that religion skill. And again, it gives the additional lore general feat. So very good. Blessed Blood, it basically just takes weakness to good damage to weakness to holy, and 1d6 good damage to 1d6 spirit damage. Extra planar supplication used to be the Imperial Blessing and Malicious Bane. You now get to choose the Bless or the Bane when you gain the feat. So you can be what used to be a Tiefling and get a Bless from it if you want. I really like this combination of what's going on here. And here we have a completely new feat, the Scion of Many Planes. Basically, you just get to choose one Nephilim lineage feat that you do not already possess. You gain that feat and all of its benefits, even if you already took a lineage feat at level 1. So basically, this is your perfect way to really combine, right, a angelic and a demonic player character and sort of fuse them together like everyone's super sick OCs that you come up with when you're in high school and think you're too cool for everyone. The next one has Nephilim resistance, which is basically just celestial and fiendish resistance. Now it's just Nephilim resistance. All right. Celestial and fiendish magic now just give you a list of spells that you can take, and then it gives you an idea of what a specific type of those would take. So, for example, angelic magic is normally humanoid form and remove fear. Archon magic is continual flame and shield order. Azata magic is glitter dust and remove paralyze, and then Daemon magic is hell kneel and or death kneel and false life. Demon magic is paranoia and shatter, and devil magic is invisibility and misdirection. But you can mix and match as you see fit, which I think is cool. All right, celestial mercy basically just has the prerequisite that you are one of the more angelic heritages. And slip sideways is basically just been changed, so you're one of the demonic heritages. And also, both of those previous spells, Celestial Mercy and Slip Sideways, have had the spells that they grant renamed to their remaster counterpart. All right, Summon Nephilim Kin is basically just a combined version of Summon Celestial Kin and Summon Fiendish Kin. So basically, you get to pick which fiend or celestial depending on your lineage, and you can cast it once per day as a divine innate spell. Divine Declaration is basically Celestial Word and Fiendish Word, just a standard version. And Eternal Wing now replaces Eternal Wings and Relentless Wings. Basically, just this is the flight feat for the Nephilim. All right. And our last two are the new half elf and half orc. Don't ask me how I am supposed to spell the half elf. Ivorin, I think. I don't know. But Ivorin and the Dromar, which is the half orc, are basically just unchanged. So there's nothing really new about them. Just they exist. They're cool. They're awesome. I just cannot, for the life of me, figure out how I'm supposed to pronounce Ivorin. I think, and I am not going to look it up right now because I am too tired. All right, we've finally gotten through all those changes. So now you know a little bit about what has changed for some of these ancestries and what hasn't. Again, my thoughts, I think not a lot has changed. Anything that has changed, it's been to clarify something or to make something stronger because it was underperforming how it was. I didn't see any buffs. I didn't see any nerfs. And honestly, again, this is just feeling like a very minor improvement to pretty much an already fantastic system. So, thank you all for watching. I appreciate your support. Please like or subscribe if you have enjoyed this content. And if you would like to leave a comment about how I cannot pronounce whatever the half elf is now, please leave a comment. If you know how to pronounce it, maybe try to share that wisdom with me because I am very, very lost and confused. And with that, y'all have a good night. Try to avoid those natural fails. See you next time.